Welcome to today's webinar, Mastering the New HCAHPS. Our speaker today is Rachel Spalding, VP of Process Improvement with Custom Learning Systems. Prior to joining CLS, Rachel enjoyed 15 years of healthcare leadership, including the last 5 as a hospital executive and chief nursing officer. Rachel earned her doctorate in nursing practice and is an advanced board-certified nurse executive. She has a track record of enhancing work environments, increasing staff engagement, and improving patient experiences in hospitals. We are so appreciative of her time and knowledge today. At this time, all lines have been placed on mute to prevent any background noise. We will have question and answer periods throughout the presentation. Please type your questions using the question prompt. Your questions will be answered in the order they were received. Please identify the name of your organization at the beginning of your entry. This webinar is being recorded and will be available in the CIHQ YouTube library within a few days. It's now my pleasure to turn the conference over to Rachel Spalding. Rachel, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and welcome everyone. I'm so excited to get to talk to folks about HCAHPS and really talk about patient experience as an outcomes lover. I want to say a big thank you to CIHQ. They're a great partner of Custom Learning, but most importantly, they really meet the needs of their clients, whether it's regulatory standards, improving quality of care. They really have been there, and they continue to just elevate over and over again. So I'm real appreciative of our partnership with CIHQ. And so, Michelle, thanks for introducing me, a little bit more about me, but let's get to it. So today we're talking about HCAHPS. And, you know, it's an ominous subject. And since we saw a lot of changes in 2025, I want to go through those briefly. But I first want to share a story with you about Michelle. When I was a chief nursing officer, I received phone calls from patients from time to time. And one time I got this call and I thought, oh gosh, you have that little butterfly in your stomach or in your chest and you're going, is this going to be a good call or is this going to be a call that I'm not going to want to hear? But I had a gentleman on the phone. He was 70 years old and he told me the story of having to give up his farm because he was just too old to manage it anymore. And he had just become a widow and lost his wife. And he was really struggling and had been in the hospital. He had been with us for about a week in the inpatient setting. And he said, you know, there was this one nurse. She sat down and she looked at me, not as an old, frail man in the bed, but someone that she could connect with. And he said then something that stuck with me for a long time. I needed a human more than a hospital. And that's what Michelle did for me. And so that's what I want you all to think about. When we have patients and we have the privilege of having patients in our care, they really need that human connection. They want that experience that you see them for who they are. And that's really what patient experience in HCAHPS is about. And so I couldn't forget Michelle. And that day, she actually even had already clocked out and realized that the patient's call light was on and went back to sit with him for an additional 30 minutes after her shift. So I just have to bring Michelle up because this is the kind of experience that our patients need and want from us to move the needle. And so my first point for today's presentation is you'll never improve your patient experience scores until your front line owns them. And in order for them to own them, what do we have to do? We can't hold them accountable for what they don't know. So we have to make sure they're educated and they understand patient experience and its measurements. And of course, the reason you guys are all here today is the speed of the leader is the speed of the team. We have to ensure our leaders are on board and they're the ones that are going to dictate how we move through learning more about HCAHPS and improving patient experience. And my fourth point today is patient experience isn't soft, it is an outcomes lever. And we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty and talk about data and outcomes and why it matters not only from a patient experience standpoint, but from the overall performance of your organization. So what do you need to know to push that outcomes lever in the right way? And so let's get into the agenda and tools today. We're going to talk about 4 lessons of experience measurement. I want to level set and make sure everyone understands some basics around HCAHPS. Then we're going to talk about the outcomes lever, restfulness, which is a new domain called, and we call it rest assured, Care coordination is a new domain in HCAHPS. We call it the art of seamless care. And then information about symptoms. That's one of those supplemental questions that we call healing signals. And we're going to talk about what's next. What are those next steps that you want to take in making sure that all these things come to reality. And we will have time for Q&A at the end. Also, there is a questions tab within the GoTo platform, so feel free to type a question in there. We will get to it either throughout the program or at the end, and we have some folks that are going to monitor that for us. And then, of course, our first guide for you, our first gift to you is to make sure that you get the learning guide. So please take out your phones. There's a few more QR codes to come throughout the presentation and at the end. But go ahead and scan that QR code so you can get your learning guide. It is also given to you in the handouts tab. There are several handouts within the handouts tab on your GoToWebinar platform here that you can access through that means as well. But scan this QR code so you can follow along, and you can make sure you can share this with your team if someone may not be here with you. And of course, we have so many HCAHPS resources. We have what's called C-Tools. This is a lot of time what our clients use, but we're making those free to you today through this presentation. But please scan the QR code, ensure that you're getting access to everything you need. And then at the end, I will share this slide again. This is where I need to get information, feedback about how I did today, what we can do to improve or continue the great work that we're trying to accomplish. So just don't forget, you're going to need to scan that QR code at the end of an evaluation so we can get some great feedback from you. And so I'd like to start with another quote. This is Ted Lasso, and if you know Ted Lasso, a lot of leadership lessons from that series and life lessons, but this quote in particular makes me think of HCAHPS and especially the changes that CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, made in 2025 to the survey. Taking on a challenge is a lot like riding a horse. If you're comfortable doing it, you're probably doing it wrong. And as someone from the state of Kentucky and a former horse owner, I can tell you this is very true. So yes, they keep changing things up on us, and we can't get comfortable, right? We've got to continue to be flexible and adaptable to these environments and figure out how to get it right. And we've got some great opportunities to teach you today that you could implement. So aren't you excited to know that there's some answers about how we can keep moving in the right direction with HCAHPS? So the 4 lessons of experience measurement that I want to start with here is you can't fix what you don't know. And it's so important. First off, how are you measuring patient experience? What are your scores? And do your teams know about it? Your people won't care about what they don't know about. So we have to make sure we make this top of mind and something that they're comfortable looking at. We have to ensure that they have the education and knowledge. And why won't patients tell you how they honestly feel when they're under your care and control? Well, that's pretty simple. A lot of people fear that there may be retribution if they really tell you how they feel. And so the first thing that we need to understand is that what are our surveys telling us? We have to become survey literate. We have to ensure that our teams also know how are they being measured? How are they being asked? How are patients being asked about the care that they provide to them? And they have it's an obligation that they know how patients are being asked about the care that they're providing. So let's become survey literate. Let's know what those terms mean. And perception can equal deception. And what we mean by that is there's several different ways to look at HCAHPS survey results. You can look at top box or excellent. And what that means is that's the percentage of surveys that score a 4 out of 4. So that just tells you what that overall percentage is that folks gave you an excellent rating. And then percentile rank looks at your top box score compared to all others that are reporting. And that's really important because when we look at top box and percentile rank, how do they relate? Well, if you score a raw score of top box of 90%, that could put you in the 95th percentile. If you score at 72, some people go, that's not bad. We're still going to be up there. But that could actually mean you're in the 50th percentile. And if you score 60, that could very well mean that you're in the 10th percentile rank. And so you can see that that top box score can really lead to some deception when we truly don't understand how it relates to our comparison group and understanding that percentile rank. And lesson 3, this is a quote that Brian will say sometimes, and I changed it up, so don't let him know because I might get in trouble here, but we say 3 stars sends them away, 4 stars is just okay, and 5-star makes them stay. And what this means is that really when you start seeing your improvements take off and you get towards that 5-star either CMS rating and or the national rating system for those hospitals, particularly critical access hospitals that don't have enough surveys, they're still eligible for that 5-star rating with NRS. You know, the thing that we misunderstand is that 5 stars is where we start to see loyalty. That's where we start to see positive financial improvement. So 5 stars is what makes them come back. They've had an amazing experience, and we must understand that 4 stars is just okay. So how do we take it one step further to really ensure that they choose us for their care? And ultimately, what gets measured gets treasured. And we have to ensure we understand this measurement. Are we looking at it regularly? Do we have a Service Excellence Council that's overseeing how that's going? But we must understand what we're measuring, and we must put it top of mind. So which one of these resonates most with you? You don't know, your people won't know what they don't know about, they won't care about. Perception equals deception. 5-star really means something important to patients, and that, you know, public reputation and what we measure is what gets treasured. So which one of those resonates with you? So we're going to step into this outcome lever concept, and this really talks about quality care and some other factors besides patient experience. But what we see is that hospitals with higher patient experience performance show better clinical outcomes and safety signals. So this has been shown over and over in the literature that if patients are rating hospitals well in their patient experience performance categories, they show that they have better clinical outcomes. And this is what I'm talking about specifically. We see a decrease in 30-day mortality for AMI and pneumonia. We also see a decrease in 30-day readmission rates for AMI and heart failure. And we see that unnecessary utilization of healthcare goes down as well. And then improved adherence to their treatment plan. We see that safety culture improves, and we have fewer adverse events. And overall, we see better clinical outcomes. And I've listed some references there, and there will be references at the end of this presentation as well. But there's a correlation between patient experience and clinical outcomes. So it's all not just soft step. That's what I need people to understand. And when we think about these outcome improvements, they do show up as revenue. We have fewer preventable events such as readmissions or complications. We reduce avoidable costs. We also can really show that we have improved market share when there's a strong experience performance as well. So these are all really, really important factors to keep in mind. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's just the right thing to do. And as Brian Lee, our founder and CEO, says, in rural healthcare, revenue doesn't grow because you say you're great. It grows because patients and families tell others you're great. And regardless of the size of your organization, we all need for this to be true, especially though in rural healthcare. And I also want to share this slide with you. This shows the curve. When we look at folks that are measuring any type of customer experience, when they score a 1 or 2, they call that the zone of defection. That means they're more than likely probably not going to return. And then if they score 3 to 4, they're still indifferent about how they feel about you as an organization. The only time that it really does make a difference from a loyalty perspective is if you're able to score that very good or always score. That's that zone of affection where they start to understand who you are, fall in love with the experience they have, and return to you. So it's really important that we understand that until we get to that very good or that always, we don't know that we have a loyal customer, and we have to make some improvements. And Dave Deaton at Ozark Health said at 4 stars, we're breaking even, but 5 stars is how we get ahead. And so that's just keeping that excellent and always mindset. And when we look at positive margin, and this came from Press Ganey when they surveyed over 3,000 hospitals, when you score a 1, 2, or 3, you can see there's really a negative profitability margin, but not until you get to that always and excellent at 4, that's when you actually start to show some profitability in relationship to your HCAHPS scores. So this is a huge lesson that we don't always talk about. And another example that came from Nell Bolam and Dr. Lee from Press Ganey, if you have a 1-point change in your overall hospital rating, you'll see a 0.4% profit margin increase. But if you improve it by 5, that's 2%. And so that's a lot of dollars that could be left on the table that could go back to reinvestment in capital, reinvestment in your staff. There's so many things that we need to understand around HCAHPS and what that truly means to an organization. And so there's so many benefits of having a 5-star reputation. We're improving the patient and family experience, and that's the most important, number one. We want to increase those return visits and grow our market share. We want to build that brand of trust and confidence from our communities. We also want to attract and retain quality caregivers, and we want to dispel this Band-Aid station perception, especially for our critical access hospital colleagues. This has been such a frustrating concept for them because they do so much more than just provide minimal care. They provide high quality advanced care. So we need to dispel that. And one of those ways is getting to that 5-star recognition. And we would, first of all, I want to say congrats. Some of our clients are on the call today, but want to recognize them. We've had 18 5-star successes, whether it's CMS 5-star or for the National Rural Rating System, but you can see them recognized there, and we're really excited for them. I want to say congratulations on all their hard work. And this is where we would come to our next educational tool, in addition to that learning guide, is what we call Ignite the Patient Experience. And so with our partnership through CAHQ, we're able to offer what's called Ignite the Patient Experience. And you are eligible to enter for a draw for a 2-day on-site leadership program from us. And so you can scan that QR code there. There's an opportunity as well with the evaluation, but feel free to scan that if that's something that you would be interested in. It really is an opportunity for us to listen to what your teams have to say. We do a lot of focus groups. We also educate throughout these focus groups to really look at culture, how things are going, and look at the overall experience. We also then provide a keynote to inspire folks to understand why patient experience is so important, and this is for your entire organization. And then we advise, we provide a blueprint on how you can hardwire that 5-star experience. So today we're offering one of these to you all, which is just an amazing value. I can't even tell you the value here, but just think about taking, taking that opportunity to put in your name for that draw today. Someone will get it. And we do get a 4.8 average rating out of 5 on our evaluations from our speakers. And so Rhonda Still, our Director of Service Development, that's her contact information there. Feel free to reach out to Rhonda, and she'd be glad to talk with you more if you're interested in doing something beyond being in that draw today. But I'm going to move on to understanding the why behind HCAHPS. And so with HCAHPS, if you don't understand what it stands for, it's the Hospital Consumer Assessment of Healthcare Providers and Systems Survey. They made that really easy for all of us, but we know it lovingly as HCAHPS. And why did they make changes in 2025? This is a big question about the survey. Well, first of all, they listened. They listened to focus groups from patients. They listened to focus groups from organizations and other, organizations such as the Barrel Institute, et cetera. But they wanted to reduce responder burden, improve response rates, because that has become an issue. And they wanted to more accurately reflect the patient experience in those questions. That's why they chose to make those changes. And that's why we brought about the Mastering the New HCAHPS. And so the technical changes we saw as of January 2025 is we went from 29 to 32 questions. We now have a max of 12 supplemental questions, and there is a 49-day response window. Now we have the new web survey first mode, which we are starting to see people really improve response rates by ensuring that they have the web survey as a mode for their patients to respond. So if you haven't thought about evaluating that, that's something that you need to think about going to first, is that web survey as an option for your patients. And then also now in 2020, beyond 2025 and on, patients can use a proxy to respond. So if they have a proxy such as a family member or someone who cares for them, they can respond on their behalf. And then the survey must be provided in their preferred language. So if you haven't already talked to your vendors, it's really important that you ensure that this is happening with the preferred language. And then we had some measure changes. I talked to you about these three categories were added, the 2 domains and the 1 question. And then they removed the care transitions domain. It's still important. It's still important. We must still understand it. It's in care coordination. But we also saw an update to the responsiveness of hospital staff question. And I want to review that really quickly so you can understand the types of changes that CMS made in 2025. When we look at responsiveness, the question before they made the changes said, during this hospital stay, after you press the call button, how often did you get help as soon as you wanted? And now it asks, during this hospital stay, when you asked for help right away, how often did you get help as soon as you needed? So you can see right away they've modernized because not everybody uses the call button, right? There's many different ways that you could, ask for help. So they took away that specific call button language, and they started to really look at, well, you wanted help and you asked for help as soon as you wanted it, but did that really prioritize how quickly you truly needed it from a perspective of acuity? So when you ask during this hospital stay, when you ask for help right away, this is really getting an answer. Did we respond when you had a high level, high acute type of response that you needed? So this is a great change that they made, but this is an example of what happened in 2025. And so there were no changes to these 6 domains, and our recommendation is to keep measuring, keep improving, and understand where you can get to that next level. And then one other change, during this hospital stay, how often was the area around your room quiet at night? This question was rolled up into the restfulness of the hospital environment domain, and we're going to talk more about that. But our recommendation is to assign domain champions for these new areas so they can start understanding them and educating teams about them so they understand how to move forward. And we also just released 3 separate webinars on these 3 categories with our HCAHPS leadership series. And they're really great, and they go into much more detail than I am today. I'm going to share a lot with you, but these go into a lot more detail about each one of these changes and how you can improve these areas. And so is there somebody that should be here today but couldn't be here, or maybe they won't get to watch the recording? But one of our things that we're offering to you as well with our compliments is that I will provide this 1-hour webinar virtually to your team. So if you're interested in that, please scan this. I really appreciate CIHQ letting us offer this to you guys, but please scan that QR code or let us know in that evaluation that you're interested in me presenting Mastering HCAHPS to your teams. It would be my pleasure. Okay, so moving on to restfulness of the hospital environment, and we call this Rest Assured. And this is Mr. Kinney. Mr. Kinney had quite a few health problems. He was in and out of the hospital and experienced several things, but he was going in for a routine procedure at 7 a.m. and thought he would be in and out of the OR area and back home within an hour. But unfortunately, he had a little bit of a detour, had a complication they didn't expect. So he went immediately up to the floor around 8 a.m., which we all know is a super, super busy time. He could hear people in the hallway having conversations, and all he wanted to desperately do was get some rest because he didn't really sleep well the night before. And for me, I get the privilege of calling Mr. Kinney my dad, as you can see, and I happen to have a small white noise machine in my backpack from traveling because I use this at night. And I said, Dad, can I turn this on for you? It's about $7 or $8. And he said, sure, I'll try it. I turned it on, and within a couple of minutes, he was sound asleep. And just that signal that rest matters to the team and to those walking in the room when they saw the noise machine on, they treated him differently. They moved differently. Things were different. And I recognize that that signaling meant the world. And so we have to understand that rest has just such an important place within our organizations. And it doesn't just happen at night. When patients are in our care, we have to adjust because rest can occur at any time. And that's why this change was made when we look at HCAHPS. Feedbacks from patients consistently show that noise and interruptions were the top complaints during hospital stay. But what does research on healing tell us about this link and why it's so important for us to understand? And they really wanted to look at it with a holistic care philosophy. They wanted to encourage hospitals to view patients' experiences as more than just medical interventions. Restfulness truly is a cornerstone of care, because what we understand is that rest is medicine. It's not just comfort. Inpatient sleep loss is consistently linked to poor recovery, higher pain sensitivity, impaired immune function, and longer hospital stays. And we must address this. Delirium risk also rises with sleep disruption, and healing literally slows without sleep. I think we all know that in our personal lives, that we need rest to heal. And noise is a modifiable culprit. So we have to understand that we have control of those things, and we have to redesign routines that are going to allow for improved perceived quiet and rest without harming care. And environment and routines matter in all of this. And the positive outcomes we see, which I've already mentioned a few, but you can see here, we're going to potentially reduce infectious disease risk, minimize complications, decrease pain, and even have short post-op recovery times. So we have to pay attention to rest. It's not just a fluff thing. And so the questions that are asked, they're asking about restfulness are, during this hospital stay, how often were you able to get the rest you needed? How often was the area around your room quiet at night? And during this hospital stay, did doctors, nurses, and other hospital staff help you to rest and recover? So yes, this just isn't nursing's responsibility. This is everyone's responsibility. And that's what we have to remember with HCAHPS, with patient experience. It's everyone's responsibility that walks into a care environment to ensure that we are providing an opportunity for rest. And it's just about that signaling that it's valued. So it's not just a box to check, but it's an opportunity for us to excel in delivering that compassionate, patient-centered care. So create that restful environment. Look at the different types of things that they may need to give them rest, such as, cozy socks, or do they need noise canceling headphones? Is the temperature in their room able to be controlled? Could you bring a fan in or a white noise machine? But there's just, how can we make small tweaks to the environment so they understand that we care about their rest? And our first recommendation here is to look at creating a multidisciplinary rest assured team. This team could quickly come together and start brainstorming effective ways to implement some of those ideas into your unit's culture and protocol. So really, you can see here, we want to keep rest a shared goal across all these disciplines. We want to encourage patient engagement. And this looks like a couple different things, but when we're doing hourly rounding, when we're doing leader rounding on patients or bedside report, those are our absolute best practices that we should have on inpatient units and other areas. How are we engaging the patient in letting them have some say into their environment? One way is that we could introduce rest as a healing strategy during admission and in early care conversations as part of their care plan. And so why not provide them with a rest guide? We need to educate patients on why rest is important. Don't you think that would tell them that we really value their rest? So we've got a couple of guides, and those are within your C tools. Then think about clustering care activities. Can you plan and coordinate certain activities such as med administration, assessments, personal care, or vital monitoring in one visit so you can minimize a rest disruption? Of course, you have to pay attention to what's prioritized here. Their care and what they require may not always allow for that, but when it's possible, let's look at that. And those healing time periods that we kind of moved away from during COVID, have we readdressed those? Have we come back to those healing time periods to see if that's what our patients might need from us? And so clustered care means longer periods of uninterrupted rest, because without it, we know what happens, right? We want to improve these outcomes for patients. In a case study of a med-surg unit's, what they called power hour, everyone synchronized their rounds. That reference is in my reference page, but they were able to reduce patient disruptions by 40% in the first month that they started clustering care. So really a great case study to learn from there. And then who hasn't heard about sentence starters? We have sentence starters for each one of these categories, but we want to be able to communicate well with our patients about how we care for their rest. And so here are some examples, and you have that C-tool sentence starters as well. And then caregiver education, right? We have to familiarize them with the importance of restfulness and the new questions and what's important about it. And the hard truth is that patients can't control their noise levels. They can't control your unit cultures or your care schedules, but we can. Hospitals can. We have control over those things. We have to make these adjustments because rest occurs at any time, not just at night. And have you thought about changing the expectations for your patients? Have you thought about upon admission saying to the patient, you're going to hear a lot of noises because this isn't like your bedroom at home. So you're going to hear sounds of care. Do you see how that changes when you say it that way to a patient and they hear it upon admission, that they're going to hear monitors potentially and other things that isn't like their bedroom at home, but these are called sounds of care. That just changes everything. It flips the script and makes this a new mindset for them to think about and sets a realistic expectation for them. So think about that upon admission. So these were the C tools that we provided to you. You have those links on all the things I discussed that you can plug and play. You can take these today, take them to your teams right away. And where are you excited to start? Looking at how do we better educate patients with a rest guide? How can we use better relaxation techniques and provide some information? How can you do all of these, start doing some of these things to really move the needle on restfulness of your environment? And one thing that we want to bring up, which may not lead to restfulness, but we're definitely thinking if you come to our conference, which is going to be in Reno, Nevada this year in November, that you're probably not going to get a lot of rest. But we're hoping that you do thrive and enjoy and join us for this conference. So thanks to our partners at CIHQ. These are all valued. Each scholarship to the conference is valued at $1,150. But today we're offering any organization on the call today, on the webinar today, 2 scholarships per organization to attend the annual Healthcare Service Excellence Conference. We've been providing this conference for over 40 years, and it's just an amazing opportunity for you guys to get some great education, to walk away with some true collaboration with your colleagues. But we are offering 2 scholarships to each organization to attend, and there's definitely going to be more information at the end. But if you're interested in that gift and in that complimentary gift from us, please scan this QR code. It'll take you to a place where you can denote that you're interested in 2 free scholarships valued at $1,150 to attend our annual conference. We would love to have you. It's so much fun and so much education to be learned there. So take advantage of that. And then the next thing we want to talk about is care coordination, the art of seamless care. And have you ever played the game telephone? Now, if you've played the game telephone like I have in the past, it really is tough, right? Because one person says one thing, they whisper it to each other around a circle, around to different participants playing the game. And usually what comes out on the other end is very, very different than what was originally said. And sometimes when patients are in a hospital setting, they very much feel like they're playing this game of telephone with providers, with others, and it can be very, very stressful. So this is where care coordination comes in. How are we all talking to each other, and do we feel like we're on the same page? Does the family feel like we're on the same page? Does the patient and other caregivers feel like we're on the same page? Because without that signaling that we're all on the same page, they might not feel safe in our care. And it's really important that they feel safe and that they can trust us and that we're all on the same page. And so why was care coordination added to HCAHPS in 2025? Well, it really was about, once again, meeting the patient's need and preferences to know that we're all on the same page. We wanted to improve healthcare outcomes, and really how could we reduce the healthcare costs and redundancies from just overutilization because we weren't providing enough coordination for that patient. Now, the first questions in the survey start like this. During the hospital stay, how often were doctors, nurses, and other hospital staff informed and up to date about your care? And then the second question talks about during this hospital stay, how often did doctors, nurses, and other hospital staff work well to care for you? So those are the first 2 questions. We'll go over the third one here in a minute. but that's how they are worded. And you can see it lists those different disciplines, doctors, nurses, other hospital staff. So it's really important that you start understanding the team approach here. How are we all collaborating? So first off, we have to improve our collaboration. So communication between all of us must happen, whether that's through a structured huddle, through interdisciplinary rounds and handoffs, through bedside report, but we have to ensure that patients know that we're communicating well and we're all on the same page. And then, of course, we have to educate our caregivers. They have to understand why care coordination is so important. So think about, can I pull together an in-service? Can I pull together another modality of how we can educate and familiarize them with the new questions and really give them the latest best practice and skills around this topic? And we have a care coordination workshop agenda that's in your C-Tools that could help you to start pulling that together. And we also have another document called the Art of Seamless Care that has some of those skills and best practices laid out for you. And we must keep the family engaged as well. Most of the time, patients are relying on family and or other support persons to care for them when they go home, or to at least provide support. So we should keep them engaged in their ongoing clinical goals. And these are some 3 must-have best practices. First off, nurse leader rounding on patients, bedside shift report, and hourly rounding. I can't talk about how important these are over and over again for many reasons, but this continues to have good communication flow and collaboration. It really signals to patients that we're on the same page with you. And you must ensure that teach back is a pillar of clinical culture throughout your entire organization. And we provided a teach back C-Tool for you as well in the handouts, but this teach back methodology, and it gives you a quick way on how to share that with others. And we also have communication with nurses as a Mastering HCAHPS Leadership Series webinar as well, in that series that goes into a lot of detail around this domain. And then we must meet and manage expectations. So we must establish clear and achievable timeframes for follow-ups and updates. And just like we manage expectations with restfulness, we must manage expectations as well when we talk about care coordination and around these follow-ups. So think of something that the team can reliably meet or exceed, which could be a certain time frame. Maybe it's saying we'll be in here to do rounds before noon, right? So that gives you a lot of opportunity to meet or exceed that time frame. And we have to frame delays in a way that reassures patients. We don't want to make them feel that they're not safe or there's something else going on to cause this delay. We have to ensure that we talk to them about delays, because if we don't, that really just lets them sit there and worry and concern and frustration. So we must update them, because most of the time it's not about the delay itself, it's the why behind and what they're missing out of that next step of care that we must reassure them to make them feel supported. And that thoughtful messaging, that can really help manage those expectations while they can still maintain that trust in your team. And then the third question is, did doctors, nurses, or other hospital staff work with you and your family or caregiver in making plans for your care after you left the hospital? And this is really important, because this is where we start seeing new language in after you left. It used to be when you left in several different categories and several questions, but now we see this after you left the hospital. So we've got to do a really great job at engaging patients early in discharge planning. So this is our first recommendation. Get them involved in discharge planning as soon as possible, and get their support and or family members involved as well. We have to give clear instructions on what to do and how to follow up after discharge if they have any concerns. So offering patients and family members a discharge packet that's organized, that's clearly labeled and easy to understand. And we can go ahead and do that when they get admitted, right? There's certain things that are going to apply to them regardless of their disease process. So we must really look at this as an opportunity to start having that conversation earlier. Review that packet with them so that patient and family members or support persons know where to find key information after they've left. And we've got another discharge information Mastering HCAHPS Leadership Series webinar on this exact topic. And the next recommendation is to also, within that discharge packet, include a contact communication sheet. This can be used after their transition to home, or if they're not going home and maybe they are going to be going to long-term care or to rehab, whatever it may be, but make sure they have a contact information sheet that's very clear to read, so that it can really help them understand, who do I contact when I have a concern, whether it's symptoms, whether it's a medication, what should we do? And I hope that you're doing discharge calls, because discharge calls can really pick up on some things that might be going awry, such as medications. It could be many things to prevent readmission or a poor outcome. And then charter a seamless care team. When we think about that, you can pull a multidisciplinary group together, and I think this is where this is a great case use for this, is to definitely implement a seamless care team and start looking at what you can do to improve your all's collaboration and communication amongst each other. And we provided you with a seamless care charter that outlines what the roles and responsibilities and goals of that team could be. And so look at that charter, think, is that something that I could do? Of course, we listed some of those disciplines that we feel will have the most impact in that category. But there's a list of your C tools once again. And where are you committed to getting started? Is it around communication and collaboration? Is it around encouraging real-time questions? But think about what your next steps are on how you could start moving the needle here. And then the last section I want to cover is called information about symptoms, and we like to call this healing signals. And this was a supplemental question that was added to the survey in 2025. But do you think it's possible to be misunderstood when we're explaining things to patients? Absolutely. I just had an encounter with my aunt and her husband in a critical situation over the weekend. And I sat there with her and the provider and listened to him give her information. And I could just see it just wash over her, because she was so concerned about the situation at hand that she didn't really understand, nor could she relay to her husband what was going on. And patients deserve to know and understand their symptoms and condition. And those at the bedside with them do as well. Those that are going to be caring for them, those that are going to be overseeing their care at home, they all need to truly understand. And in these high stressful situations, or situations that are out of their control, they're juggling so many things. And so we have to ensure that they hear us loud and clear and that they have clarity. And this is a great statement here. I know you believe you understand what you think I said, but I'm not sure you realize that what you heard is not what I meant. And that is so true sometimes how this can go. So why was this added to HCAHPS? Well, really, it was this focus on patient safety, providing proactive care, and addressing those gaps in communication. And the question reads like this: did doctors, nurses, or other hospital staff give your family or caregiver enough information about what symptoms or health problems to watch for after you left the hospital? Once again, that after you left language. So we provided you with a few things here. Standardizing the discharge process is so important. So a recommendation would be to start with a symptoms checklist, and that could be a detailed list of common symptoms, as well as some that might go into more detail. And your portals or your EHRs may already have great educational tools that you can print out and let patients have, or their caregivers have, to be able to review things. But how are you using all of those pieces? But we've provided you with some C tools around all of those items there, creating checklists around symptoms and what to look for, and how do you review that checklist with the patient. That's a skill as well. And we need to communicate clearly with teachback. So I brought up teachback earlier, and I'm bringing it back up again, because the best way to do this is to have patients repeat the information you told them in their own words to confirm understanding. And most of the time, if you ask someone, do you have any questions? What are they going to say? We're all guilty of this. No, I'm fine, thank you. Because that's just a natural response, and that prompts us to think we shouldn't have any questions. So with teachback, it looks like this. So I know that I did a good job explaining your medications. Can you tell me in your own words what you heard about this medication from me? See, putting that onus back on us, the responsibility back on us, it makes the patient feel more open then to ask questions because we're just verifying that we did a good job teaching. And so they're more than likely going to have questions if you're able to do it in a teach back methodology. And we must involve the entire care team. We have to have our doctors and providers focusing on those high level expectations. We have our nursing staff that are reinforcing education by explaining symptom management anytime that they walk in the room, right? Making it part of just what we do every day. And then if we have pharmacists available to do rounds, are available for question and answers from patients, let them look at those high-risk medications. Let them look at medications that are new to the patient, and are they able to talk with the family and or patient and address some of those medications, such as side effects, those types of things. And then leverage your educational tools, right? We need to ensure that they have written instructions. We've provided a C tool on how to do that and what best practices are around providing those written instructions for patient education. And we can't forget, we've got to empower patients. So if we're in the room doing nurse leader rounding on patients, we need to encourage those questions. You know, what are the things that you're worried about when you go home? You know, what symptoms are you concerned about that you might experience? But how do we start encouraging questions from patients and those supporting them? And then follow up post-discharge calls. I can't tell you how important within 24 hours, but no more than 48 hours to really follow up. That's a best practice to make sure we're addressing concerns and making sure they have access to what they need so they don't have a poor outcome. And so where are you excited to get started? What really interests you about sharing, which topic sharing with your teams? Is it around the discharge process, standardizing it, implementing post-discharge calls? What is it that really makes sense to you? And here's a list of those C tools that we have provided to you through the QR codes today. And we want you to utilize all of those C tools. So please scan this QR code if you haven't already to ensure that you get all of those tools that are right there at your fingertips that you can start implementing with your teams. And so what now? Right? After we have all of this information, what's next? What now? What I do want to share with you is some preliminary results. So what we're hearing so far with the study is that they saw over 18,000 survey respondents from the HCAHPS survey. 2/3 of them said that their hospital visit was unplanned. And so that's real important to know right out of the gate. We have 2/3 of our patients coming to us with an unplanned visit. So they need more time and attention, right, to care coordination, to all these other concepts that we've been talking about. So it's very important that we are, you know, starting to normalize expectations that they're going to experience in the hospital because they weren't planned to come. So that's real important to know. And then care coordination, that entire domain is now showing to be the strongest predictor for your likelihood to recommend and your overall hospital rating. We'll keep our eye on this to see if it changes much, but that's what we're starting to see from preliminary results. So I'm so glad that we have this information. So start working on those new domains and particular attention to care coordination because it holds the key for so many things, outcomes, experience, and then of course your strongest predictor for overall rating. And so please scan this. This is our Mastering HCAHPS Leadership Series that I did refer to a couple times. This is some more information about that webinar series that goes over HCAHPS domains. And just most importantly, a big reminder, what Tony Buzan said is 93% of what you learn in a classroom is forgotten within 14 days. So use the information we've given to you today. Use it with your teams because we don't want you to lose this valuable information. And if you're not a member of the CLS network, let's talk. We'd love to see you in conference, so make sure that you get that opportunity. And also, as you can see, we were rated a 4.97 out of 5 for our conference, whether you talk about the presentations, the food, but the overall rating was 4.97, and it's just a fantastic opportunity to network and, of course, improve your knowledge around all the things I talked about today. And once again, if you want this presentation virtually for your team, please scan this. We're happy to provide that to you virtually, as well as providing 2 scholarships to attend the next conference that will be November 9th through 11th in Reno, Nevada at the Grand Sierra to each organization. So if you're interested, please take some time to take advantage of that. And then, of course, Ignite the Patient Experience. I talked about that. It's a 2-day on-site leadership program that does provide just a great opportunity for you to know more about your culture, what to focus on, and get a blueprint to set you on the right track. And that is free of charge to you. So just take the opportunity to be in that draw for that 2-day on-site. And feedback is the breakfast of champions. So I'm going to ask you to pull out your phone once again, because we want to know what we can do better every time we present information. And so pull out your phone now. Please scan the QR code and take a moment here to give us some feedback. And then we'll go on to some Q&A. So if you have any questions, please start thinking about putting those in the tab after you complete your evaluation. So please scan that QR code. Give me some feedback about how I did. What information did you find valuable? What you might want to take home from it. This is so important because we absolutely want to provide top quality education and information to anyone that we're able to get in front of. And we're just so grateful that we're a partner with CIHQ, such a great organization. And we'd love to give them some great feedback about the content that they provide through their trusted, their partnership and their partnered webinar series. So please take them a few moments here to scan that QR code and give us an evaluation.
Right, thank you everyone. As a reminder, type your question using the question pane. By the name of your organization at the beginning, as this gives Rachel insight into any special considerations that need to be addressed. And of course, make sure your question is clearly worded. And I've got one from Kendall in Iowa. So she wants to know, is it helpful to focus on an individual domain instead of trying to attack multiple areas at once?
That's a great question, Michelle. You know, sometimes it's best to look at your domains as a whole and really start seeing what areas that you have. I would look at your top 3 areas that you have for improvement when we look at overall domain performance. And so I would look at those top 3 areas, and each organization looks different. So if you're a smaller critical access, or you're a community rural hospital, or a larger academics, or whatever you're setting, that might mean you have different resources. So I think you have to gauge also the breadth and availability of your team. But our recommendation is to take a domain at a time and specifically focus on that area for improvement. And if you have other domains that are underperforming, start thinking about how you can roll those into teams. We have something called lead teams that our clients are very well aware of that focuses on domain strategies and improvements. But I would say, you know, take one of those domains, pull a team together, start looking at it first. And then as you get some traction in that, what's the second domain that needs improvement? And just continue to roll that work as it makes sense for your organization. But definitely it's better to focus on one than none. So whatever feels right to you and your team, start there and be able to you know, focus on that first improvement and then move on to the next. But that absolutely doesn't look the same for everyone, but I think that's a great strategy to start from. And Michelle, I just want to say thank you again to you and the CIHQ team. And then here are those references we discussed. And here is my contact information. So there's my email. I'm embarrassingly easy to find. I'm also on LinkedIn, a few other places. So if you need anything, please reach out. I'd be happy to help.
Rachel, I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
Somebody earlier on in the question box asked to have the QR code, so the QR posted again for the draw. But I'm thinking any one of those QR codes you've had go to the evaluation form, which have all of the draws in there. Am I correct?
That is correct. So if you go to that evaluation form, that QR code, any of them will all lead you kind of the same direction, and it will prompt you there, and you can always add it to the comments just to be sure if you'd like to.
One thing I think you should maybe hit on for another minute or two, if you can, is talk about the Ignite the Patient Experience. And the reason for that is day 2 is the education.
Yes. And so what's really important about Ignite the Patient Experience is that you have a neutral, unbiased, group, a team on site that really spends time with not only the leadership teams, but your frontline, with your managers, with other ancillary leaders as well, to really talk about the culture of the organization. But what happens through these focus groups and learnings is that we're also educating during this time about best practices. We talk about patient experience. We talk about cultural, types of situations that they may you may face at their organization, but we're really on a fact-finding mission to help organizations know where they need to improve while educating staff along the way. And then the day two, we have such amazing implementation specialists is what we call them, but they are speakers, they are educators, and they provide a wonderful presentation that is not only educational, but also inspiring to really, as we say, ignite that patient experience and get people started thinking about why patient experience is so important, what they can do to have ownership in the process, and what are strategies to improve. And that's for all levels of the organization. And then we're able to give them a blueprint that they can say, okay, here are the recommendations we got from experts in these areas about what we need to do as an organization to improve. There is so much value there, and it is probably one of my favorite things that I get to do with CLS, because we really get to focus on what's going to help that hospital, that organization move forward. These are provided not only in hospital settings, but we also do them for clinics, hospital-based, and FQHCs. A large portion of our clients now are federally qualified health clinics or community health centers. And so this is a great opportunity to get someone on site to help you and your team figure out best next steps. Thank you for that, Bruce.
You're welcome. I'm excited whenever you and others on the team get to go do that, and we see how it changes the organization from the bottom up, and especially from top down. When you start off the presentation talking about the speed of the leader, to me, it's always about it becomes how they lead, how they make a difference, how they inspire, how they motivate people because of their attitude, which becomes their behavior, which becomes their education, which becomes their results. So important, all those things you just wrapped up in there.
Yeah, and the frontline engagement, right? It starts there. We have to start involving them in shared decision making and understanding. So get their involvement so we can really make impactful changes. And we're probably that's what I think sets CLS apart, is our ability and recommendation to involve that front line that you don't see in other programs.
And for a good time, meet us in Reno.
That's right. We're so excited. But we just secured the location, et cetera, and all the details are forthcoming about, all of the fun that we plan on having while we're there. But it is probably, it's my favorite conference, I can tell you that, in all my years of being in healthcare. Just the excitement, engagement, just pure joy that you can experience there. Plus, it's a great opportunity to learn about so many other processes and programs. So great stuff there.
Yeah. Hey, just for those of you that want to check the site out, take a look at the website for the hotel. You will want to be there.
Yes, it's beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. Well, Michelle, do we have any other questions?
Yes. When you mentioned charter a seamless care team, do you recommend frontline staff or management to lead the team?
Well, I think, ultimately frontline staff and management both have to be involved 100%. If you have a frontline leader or a frontline, I would say a non-formal leader from the front line that would do a good job and has the resources, and you have the time to allow them out of staffing to lead the team, you could absolutely do that. But my recommendation is probably having a manager be that sponsor for the team, right? Have that or an executive sponsor even in some cases, but have that formal leader be that sponsor of the team. But you absolutely, having frontline engagement is so important on any of those teams that we recommended, because they're the ones closest to the work, and they could probably spot gaps or opportunities better than we would as leaders. So absolutely get your frontline engaged, however makes sense for your organization. It's a great question.
It is a great question. Right, it looks like there are no more questions in the queue. So again, this webinar has been recorded and will be posted to the CIHQ YouTube partner page. And we will see you all next month. Thank you again, Rachel. This was an excellent presentation.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I really enjoyed it.
I'll stay on the line until the attendees fall off, just
All right.
in case another question comes. Thanks, everyone.